Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is the Hoops Crew. My name is Ben Reeve, and this is another episode of Full Nuff Mode, but it is me flying solo today. Unfortunately, Jake can't be with me. He's had some internet issues on the farm, so it's me doing it on my own, and I'm going to take a slightly different approach to Full Nuff Mode this week. I'm going to have a look at the players that have played a single game for the Catters in 2024. I want to go and, rate the year so far for each of them individually. And I'm going to start at the top in terms of who's played the most games and then kind of work my way down. I won't cover those players that haven't played a game yet, that are still working their way through the ranks in the VFL. But we might cover that on another episode at some point, or Jake might do some kind of VFL special. I haven't actually spoken to him about that, but we might cover that at some point. But before I get into that, let's just thank the sponsor of the network, Valhalla Brewing. If you are after a nice drink before the game, especially this Friday night, the Port Adelaide game, get on down to the Brew Hall in North Geelong, just near the train station there, or they have a tap room in the city, which you can have a drink at before the game, and then just walk up Moorabool Street and take your seat just before the game's getting started. All right, so let's get on with the show. So let's go in order of who's played all 8 games so far, and let's comment, I guess. Maybe I'll try and give him a rating out of 10, but it's probably more of a comment, really. So we'll start with Max Holmes. Now, how do I feel like his season's gone? Pretty well, I'd say. He's probably meeting my expectations and most people's expectations about how he'd be going so far this year. He's had some great games. He's had a couple of quiet ones. He's definitely leading our average disposals with 24.5 per game at the moment, and quite damaging disposals, really, getting a lot of meterage and making his run along that wing and off the half back line has been very impressive. I'd like to see a few more goals from him. He's not quite a goal a game type player yet, but I think he's got it within him to be that type of player. I'd probably give him, if I'm giving him a number, let's go probably a 7.5 out of 10 for Max Holmes. Maybe you might have him slightly higher than that. Some people might have him slightly lower. Interested to know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Now, a man that we've all come to know and love, Brian Myers, another one in the 8-game group. He's had a season similar to last year, I'd be fair to say. Probably not so much goal assists this stage. That might improve as things goes on. He's definitely kicked a lot more goals, though. Surprisingly, he's kicked more goals than Max Holmes. He's got 7 so far this year. And his possessions seem a little bit up too. So 22 touches a game. The way he's using it's really impressive. Probably not being that guy, the last touch inside 50 as much as he once was. But he's been terrific. I think he's probably on par with last year. So I'm going to give him a 7.5 out of 10. Again, some people might have him a little bit higher than that. He might have had the odd game where he's a little bit quiet. So I'd love to give him an 8, but not just there is my opinion on that one. Here's one of my favourites, big baby Zach Guthrie, or Z-Banger, or Zuthrie, whatever you want to call him. Another 8-game player. Now, he's been terrific this year. There's talk about him being in the All-Australian discussions. Whether he gets there or not, it's probably not going to happen. Yes, we're only 8 games into the season, and there's a lot more to play out still. Will he make the All-Australian team, or squad, I should say? Probably not. He's kicked a couple of goals, which is nice, including a nice little lefty bender on the weekend against Melbourne. That was very pretty. But I'm really impressed with what I'm seeing from him. He's contested marking, his reading of the ball and flight's been fantastic, and they're calling him the little mini Tom Stewart at the moment. So just got to shave that little bit of fluff off. I don't like that too much. So he loses half a point for that. But I'm probably going to give him, I'm staying with the 7.5s at the moment. I'm giving him a 7.5 again. Surely some people might, again, score him a little bit higher. There's definitely people on Twitter that aren't impressed by him, though. He makes the odd mistake once in a while, but all the players do. So anyway, now Jeremy Cameron. Okay, I would have given Jezza an 8, but last week just a little bit off, so he's probably just lost a little bit there. His goal kicking's not been crash hot. He's 19 goals and 13 behind, so it's not very accurate. But we're judging Jeremy by Jeremy's standards, so it's a little tricky. I think he's had a terrific season, though. He's played every game so far. He might be due a rest at some point. I don't know. I think he's the type of player that likes consistency. So maybe second half of the year, coming into finals is probably the time to give him a rest. I'd say he's had some great games. He'll probably continue to have some fantastic games and maybe the odd quiet one, but I think it's at least 2 times this year where he's gone without kicking a goal, and then bobbed up for some other games as well. So essentially, he's kicked 19 goals in 6 games, really. So look, he's going pretty well, but 7.5 for me there as well. Now, have I given anyone anything a score other than 7.5 yet? Not yet, but I probably will now. Ollie Dempsey, he's played all 8 games as well. He's been terrific. No one probably expected him to have played all 8 games. Well, you'd be a brave person if you did. He's been terrific. 17, nearly 18 disposals a game so far. 15 disposals a game so far this year. Has kicked 6 goals. He's kicked 6 goals, 6. So he hasn't been completely accurate, but he's a bit more of an opportunistic type of scorer there. I do like his tackles. They're nice and up there as well. So I'm pretty impressed with him. I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10. I think he's got room for improvement still. Still quite young. Still needs to in some situations, maybe he wasn't always making the best decisions, but considering his year last year, he's come along so far. I'm very impressed with what I've seen from him. Now, Mark Blitzarves, we've got a few here actually that have played 8 games. I'm only probably halfway through, really, but Mark Blitzarves probably just down a little bit on last year, I'd say. Maybe I'm wrong. I still love the guy. He's still probably my favourite cat, but maybe just hasn't had the same impact. I'm not sure what that's about. Is that game plan? Is that we're using him in different roles? I'd like to see him get involved a little bit more, get his possessions up a bit more. He's kicked a couple of goals this year. He's not a goal kicker. He's never been a bloke that's played in the forward line, but maybe a couple more goals from him would have been nice. Now, the next player, so what am I giving Blitzarves? I'm going to say 6.5. Is that wrong? Maybe. Could be really wrong there. 6.5 out of 10. It is what it is. Next player, Tyson Stengel. I think he's had a terrific year. I think he's back to that All-Australian level. I'm gonna start off giving him an 8. I think that's where probably here he's at. He's 14 goals, so he's just trailing. He's 3rd in the goal kicking for the club at the moment, but he's been very accurate this year. Again, considering if you compare him to Dempsey, not exactly the same type of player, but he's kicked 14 goals 5 versus Dempsey's 6 goals 6. So he is making the most of his limited opportunities there. Want to see a little bit more forward 50 pressure from him, though. Some more tackles in the forward 50 would be nice. But I'm going to still give him an 8. So I think he's been, yes, I said, back to that All-Australian. He'll definitely be in conversations for that if his form continues as the way it is throughout 2024. Brad Close, another one, played all 8 games. It's a typical Brad Close type of year, really. I don't think he's gone backwards. He definitely hasn't improved on last year or 2022. He's kicked actually quite a few goals, interestingly, though. He's in double figures goals already, so he's going at about 1.3 a game, thereabouts, 10 goals, 2. Pretty impressive. I'm liking the tackles that he's got so far. He's been pretty solid there. He's been very accurate in front of goals. I think he kicked 1 or 2 out of bounds on the full, but he's 10 goals, 2 at the moment, averaging typical Brad Close numbers in terms of disposals, about 13 touches a game there. So what you'd expect, probably I'm going to give Brad a 7 out of 10. I think that's probably fair for Brad. Again, I'm scoring a lot of players pretty highly only because we're 7 and 1. So naturally, it's been you'd want to score these players pretty highly considering we're going so well. Sam DeConning is an interesting one here. How am I going to score Sam? I'm not going to look at his disposals because it's not really relevant for the type of role that he plays. He has been durable though, which is good to see. Been in the ruck at times a little bit. Not a heap, but he's been there. I'm sure he'd love to be floating forward once in a while and kicking a goal, but hasn't had those opportunities yet. I think he's definitely improved on last year. He's not quite at the 2022 level again. I think other teams are starting to figure him out, and probably he's got more responsibility now that Stewart's sort of just playing that more looser role, and there's more pressure or more responsibility on DeConning's shoulders to hold down that sort of key defender and be much more accountable to his opponent. So I find him a little bit hard to judge, but I am, as I said, definitely impressed with how he's turned around his form from last year, and I think it helps being injury free and being able to play 8 games in a row. That's made a bit of a difference for him. So what will I give him? Probably 6.5. I want to give him a slightly more, but I'll say 6.5 for now for him. Jack Henry. There's a lot of people on Twitter that aren't happy with Jack Henry at the moment. Yes, he turned the ball over at a crucial point in the Melbourne game, But he's a bit like Sam DeConning. He sort of plays his role. Pretty honest type of player. Hasn't had much of a go up forward yet, which is interestingly. He's a bit of a swingman type of player in years gone by, but really hasn't been used in that role at this stage. Maybe we'll look to do that a little bit more if we're playing O'Sullivan at times in the squad, or maybe we need some solutions up forward. But I guess we just haven't needed to throw him forward. The forward line, for the most part, has been functioning reasonably well. If you take out Tom Hawkins' recent sort of issues kicking goals, but the team's been relatively high scoring and has been winning games, so we haven't really needed to pull that one just yet. So Jack Henry, I don't know, probably 6 out of 10 for Jack. Maybe others will have him a little bit higher. I'm sure there'll be people on Twitter or socials that have him much, much lower than that as well. Now, the last guy the last guy to play all 8 games is Ollie Henry. Now, Ollie Henry barely gets a touch. He's less than 10 touches a game, but he's our second leading goal kicker at the club. So he doesn't need many opportunities, does old Ollie Henry. So 18 goals, 6. Very accurate in front of goal, kicks 75% of the shots on goal that he has. He's been pretty impressive. He's probably not where I wanted him to be. That's probably can I be harsh on him for that? It's probably unfair, but he's been okay. I would have liked to have seen him do a lot more. I was predicting him at the start of the year to kick 55 goals plus. It's probably not looking like that. He still might nudge 45, 50, but he'll need to have a much more improved season. Now, will coming into winter, the wetter tracks, is that going to help or hinder him? I'm not too sure. He's getting just really close. It just feels like he's really close to this breakout game at the moment, though. But I'm going to score him I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10 so far, just because he doesn't. As I said, he's a bit like Stengel. He doesn't need much of it, but when he does, he makes the most of it. So I'll give him a 7 out of 10. All right, now onto the group of players that have played 7 games. So they've either missed a week through injury or they've been managed. Generally, this is this crop. Now, Tom Stewart, a little bit quiet last week and had the week off before that through concussion and missed half a game before that as well because he went off at about halftime in that one. But he's been your typical Tom Stewart. You'd think he's probably in that All-Australian form again. I think he's going at about 22 touches a game. Has he as good as last year? I'd say just a shade under, but he's still an absolute star. Probably one of the best players in the league still. I think you've probably got to give him a 7.5. I do want to give him an 8, but I just think that concussions might have just knocked him back a peg or two. So he'll probably, next time I do this ratings, he'll probably be back in that 8 or 8.5 kind of area. I think so far this stage. Now, Mitch Duncan, how's Mitch going? Oh, look, I'm often down on Mitch a fair bit. He can use the ball wonderfully at times, but he can make some horrible decisions at other times as well. 1 goal for Mitch so far this year. 1 goal, 3 actually. So, do we expect more from Mitch? Is he playing more in the back line now? I don't know. Again, is he not required as much to be kicking these goals? 20 touches, 21 touches a game. I'm going to give Mitch a 6 out of 10. Is that too harsh? Could be. I don't know. Is that my personal bias? I love him, but he's well down the pecking order in terms of players that I love at the club. So, but he's a champion too. He's won 2 premierships, and if all goes well for the Cats this year, he might join that 3 premiership club at the Cats, which there's not many players that have won 3 premierships at this football club. So hopefully he goes well. A player I absolutely adore though is Tanner Bruin. He copped a shoulder injury last week. He's played 7 games, but will he play? Will he play next week? I'm not too sure, but he's going terrific. His possessions per game about 19. So you'd like to think that when he gets a few more years under his belt, he'll probably get that into the 25s or high 20s. You'd imagine, but he's an absolute bull. I'm loving what I'm seeing there. Strangely, no goals from him though. That's probably the one knock, which is going to take a point or 2 off. Did I score Mitch Duncan? Probably. I think I said 6. Tanner Bruin, I'd probably give I'm going to give a 7 to Tanner. I was, before I did this episode, I thought I'll probably score Tanner a lot higher than that. But yeah, just as a mid, just hasn't kicked a goal. A couple of 3 behinds. Would have liked to have seen a lot more, but he more than makes up for things in terms of his tackling and clearance work. So absolutely terrific. He's not generally the bloke getting it on the outside, running into 50 and kicking a goal, or being able to spend time in the forward line generally. So I think as we get further into the year, providing that shoulder's okay and he stays relatively injury free, I think we'll see Tanner's score climb a little bit higher there. Tom Atkins, how's everyone going to rate Tom Atkins? I'm giving Tom probably a 6.5. I think he's slightly down on last year. Now, is that form? Is that just the position he's in now? Is it the rise of some of the other mids that have maybe taken some of his role a little bit, getting more of the midfield time? I don't have midfield minutes, unfortunately, on my stats here. But look, Tom, he's 16 touches a game. He's always going to be up there in tackling. I think he's leading the team in tackles at the moment. Another one who just can't kick a goal. Again, maybe more of a defensive type midfielder there, not sort of floating forward as much. I'd like to see a little bit more from Tom. I'm going to give him a 6, which I think is pretty generous. I probably wanted to give him a 6.5 or 7, but I think just what we're seeing so far. Had a good game last week. That's probably his best game, but maybe didn't see as much as I wanted to see from him, at least anyway. I'm not having a shot at Tom. I love Tom, and I think he's definitely a 6 is pretty good, isn't it? That's not bad. I nearly went 5.5 though, but I'll give him a 6. All right, Jake Holodashny. Again, another one you don't really look at possessions too much for him. I think he's been terrific this year. I think probably going to give him. Oh, what do I want to give him? What do I want? This might be a bit controversial. I'm going to give him an 8. I am. Can you believe that? Tom, sorry, not Tom. Kolodashny is leading the ratings so far. Well, my ratings anyway, which make probably no sense. But I'm going to give him an 8. I just think he's been terrific all year round. I can't. I mean, a couple of possessions here or there throughout the whole year where I've what are you doing? That's back to the same old Jake Kolodashny again. But that's it. He's been crazy good. The only thing we haven't seen yet is him floating forward for that goal, which he likes to kick once in a while. Usually he likes to kick a goal a game these days when he can, but hasn't had much opportunity. So 8. Tell me I'm wrong. Tell me I'm way off the mark there. You might have him slightly lower than that. I doubt anyone would have him higher than that, but maybe I've been too generous there. All right, working my way down the list. I think I'm about halfway through here. So Mark O'Connor, he's been okay. He had the rest last week. He kicked a couple of goals. I thought he's had some good games. He's had some games where he's just kind of been going. I wouldn't call him a passenger, but he hasn't set the world on fire. I'll probably give him a 5.5. I think Mark could go up or down from here. I'm not really sure. Is he best 23? I don't know. Well, it might depend on whether Mitch Nevitt starts to put his hand up in the VFL and wants a couple of games. I don't know if they're necessarily like for like swap, but there's definitely some fringe players that would be keen on some opportunities. And Mark looks like he's probably in that group of players in the 23 at the moment that potentially could make way if some of the other guys start putting their hand up. Now, Jai Clark, can you believe it? He's already played 7 games this year. Straight back in last week after being managed or omitted for a week. He's been terrific. Good to see he got his first goal on the weekend. He's improving a lot. He's still probably a little bit sloppy with his tackling, but he's definitely having a crack, that's for sure. Gives away quite a few free kicks, which I want to see him just tighten up a little bit there. He's probably giving away more than he's getting at the moment. But that's okay. He's a young fella. He's learning. He's only getting 11 touches a game at this stage. You'd imagine that will increase as the year goes on, as he finds more of a role for himself. Hopefully he stays in the side for the duration of the season, but could be one that might make way as we start getting towards the business end if everyone else is staying fit. But I would like to see him go up another level or two if possible. I'll probably give Jai Clark a 5 out of 10. Tom Hawkins, this is going to be tricky. I'm going to start with just giving his rating. I'm going to rate him 5 out of 10. He's had some good games. He's, clearly the last month hasn't been great. Maybe 5 is being generous. But I think he's starting to, last week we started to see signs of that he was getting more involved in the play and probably could have had a few more goal assists, if not some wayward kicking from his teammates. I still want him to kick some goals. It just hasn't happened yet. He's kicked 9 goals for the whole season. So he's like a goal and a bit a game in 7 games so far. So still relatively accurate. 9 goals, 5, getting plenty of hit outs, which is good, but not as dominant as what he once was in that sort of forward sort of 50, getting those hit outs to advantage. A couple of times it's led to goals. yeah, want to see a little bit more from Tom. I think the second half of the year will be a little bit better. But yeah, who knows? The jury's out on Tom a little bit. I think we need to see something pretty soon. He's probably due to rest after the Port Adelaide game, and then we'll celebrate him breaking Joel Selwood's club games record the week after that, which will be exciting. Here's another one. So we're onto the 6 game players, and there's 4 in this group. So we've got Brandon Parfitt going at 19 touches a game. He's up there, I think, second in the most tackles at the club. Again, he's missed the 2 games already, but I think Brandon Parfitt, you'd score pretty highly. I'm going to give him a 7 out of 10. Now, some people will say 7.5, but I think that's just based on his improvement. I think that's maybe where we get a little bit blinded, but considering the output, I think probably 7's fair for him. But let me know if you disagree, if you think he should be a little bit higher. I really like what he's done. I'm really happy. I won't say proud because I've got no influence on him whatsoever, but I am very happy that he's been able to find a place back in the side again. It all looked like he was gone. I was surprised that he was still with us at the end of the trade week and draft, and all that sort of delisting period. But he's still with us, and it looks like he's here now and should be back in the side this week. You think when the teams are announced pretty soon. Jack Bowes, 18 touches a game. Jack's been very impressive. He's growing on me. He's probably one that I've judged very harshly early days. I'm liking that he's kicking a few goals as a mid. So I'd score him probably 6 out of 10. Again, some might have him slightly higher than that. Maybe I'm being harsh, but 6 out of 10 for me. He's up there in the tackles as well, which is what I like, and getting a few clearances too. So maybe 6.5 is probably more fair, but I'll stay with 6. Tell me if I'm wrong on that one. Zach Tui, another one that I didn't think would be with us this year, but has surprisingly been okay. I wouldn't say he's set the world on fire, and I wouldn't say, he's not been in our best players, but I'd say he's had a year on par with last year. He's definitely been able to find the goals a little bit more than the previous year. A little bit more accurate this time around, going at 16 touches a game as well. Kicked most of his goals in the one game, to be fair. But I'm pretty impressed with him. I think a 6 for Zach Tui is probably fair, I'd say. Now, Reece Stanley, he's played 6 games. He's been managed a little bit. Reece, I've got to say, Reece, I haven't been very impressed. I feel like either this management approach, the way we're managing you, is not working, or you're starting to show some decline. I don't know what it is. I don't want to just judge you off your recent game against Melbourne. That's probably unfair. And I don't think I am, but I think I'm going to give Reece a 5 out of 10 on his performance so far this year. Is that fair? Maybe that's harsh. I don't think he's had a great game at all this year. I think maybe he's held his own once or twice, but he's definitely not played a cracker at all. So anyway, all right, Patrick Dangerfield. Now we're in the group of players that have played less than 6 games, and Paddy's the only one that's played 4 games. So we're four and less at this point in time. Paddy's he's missed 4 games already this season, unfortunately, due to injury. Do I count that against him? Probably unfair to do that. I won't count that against him. So I'll judge him on his 4 games that he's been out there so far. I think he's been pretty good, considering really when he's been out there, he's been great for us. A couple of goals, probably like a couple more from him, considering he does get some time up forward. But yeah, look, I think Paddy's been pretty good. I'm going to score Paddy a 6.5 out of 10. Is that fair? Should I go a little bit higher? No, I'll stay 6.5. I'll say that. I think Paddy's been terrific at times, but in the games that he's played, I don't think he's definitely not on the ground as much as he's a bit of a burst player for us. I think if we can get him fit, I think he's got it in him for one last burst in his career. I feel like this could be the end of his career this season. Hopefully, he goes out as the 4th consecutive Geelong captain to win a premiership. It's a bit of a long shot. Premiership's still a long, even though the bookies have got us one of the favourites. Still, I'd say we're still down the pecking order a bit. But Paddy, 6 out of 10, or 6.5. I can't remember what I said. Split the difference. Cam Guthrie, only been back for 2 games now, so we're now in the block of players that have had a couple of games. I'd say he started pretty well though since he's been back, and I'm not going to hold his injury against him. I would say the games that he's played, he was fantastic against Carlton. He was a little bit quieter last week against Melbourne, but I think on the whole, reasonably good so far. I'm going to give him a 6 out of 10. Cam Guthrie, hopefully he'll continue to find his place in the side. Only good things from here on for Cam. Oisin Mullen, barely sighted the bloke, really. I can't remember the last time he played. Did go overseas for his sister's wedding, so he missed a game of VFL and is probably going to have to try and string some good games together in the VFL to find some opportunity back at AFL level. But it could be as early as this week. So he did have a good game in the VFL on the weekend, but so did a lot of other players. And, Parfitt and O'Connor are probably due to come back in as well. So is there room for Oisin Mullen? Toby Conway, you'd expect, would come back in after Stanley's played 2 games in a row. I don't know. I think Oisin will probably play VFL a little bit longer, but don't be surprised if you see him named this week on the sheet. So Oisin, probably 3.5 out of 10. Probably the games that he's played, he hasn't set the world on fire. I guess he just hasn't maybe done enough in the VFL to sort of earn his spot back just yet. That could be harsh, but we're getting down to the bottom end here, so you'd probably expect some of these scores to be a little bit lower. Toby Conway played the 2 games as well, averaging 10 touches a game, has kicked 1 goal, which is nice. Getting a lot of hit-outs, but was towed up in the Brisbane game against Oscar McInerney before he went down with injury, and then he sort of started to get on top a little bit after that. But I think he's been okay in his 2 games. I wouldn't probably give him a fantastic score. I think I don't think I'm going to give him a 4.5. I don't think that's a shot at him at all. I just think that shows that he's got plenty of room for improvement there. So 4.5 in the 2 games that he's played so far. Shawnee Manor, another one a bit like Oisin, who hasn't played in a long time. A couple of games for Oisin, 1 goal, 2, 9 touches a game. He looked really good in the VFL on the weekend with 4 goals. So you'd expect him to be in the conversation for another call-up soon. But the 2 games, I was pretty impressed with those 2 games, to be honest. I thought he looked really dangerous, and it was a bit sad that he hasn't been able to get back into the side since then. I'm going to give him a 4.5 as well. I think we can definitely find an excuse to bring him back at some stage. Hopefully we do. Clearly there's lots of players that you want to get in, and you can only get 23 at one time. So 4.5, I think that's fair. Maybe 4, maybe 5, depending on how you see him. But I think 4.5 to me seems pretty reasonable. Rounding out the list, a couple of 1-game players for the year. Well, 4 actually. Connor O'Sullivan played the 1 game. I think he came in for Kolodashny maybe when Kolodashny sat out 1. Sounds about right, yeah. So 11 touches. He's just figuring things out a little bit. I don't think we can really give him much of a high score, just really based on the 1 game. Didn't set the world on fire. I was expecting him to play a lot more games this year. I didn't think Kolodashny was going to have the year that he had, and I thought we'd give a lot more opportunity to O'Connor, but he's just going to have to. O'Sullivan. Anyway, sorry about that. So Sullivan, I thought would probably play about 10 games this year. It's still early days. Maybe he will. Maybe he will get an injury down back, and he'll be forced to bring someone like him in. But I think probably 3.5 for him as well, just based on limited opportunities and just only showed a little bit in that first game. So, all right, Shannon Neal played the 1 game. Unfortunately, it's just when you've got 2 blokes like Jezza and Hawkins, it's pretty hard to carry 3 tools. So 1 game, 3 goals from that game. I think we're going to see Shannon Neal in a week or 2. Maybe not against Port, possibly. You never know. But definitely, I think we'll put him on the plane to Darwin when we play the Gold Coast. I expect to see him play there. I think based on that 1 game and the output of 3 goals, I think I've got to give him a 4.5. No, I'm going to give him a 5. Just for that 1 output, I thought he was pretty good. Clearly, if he played more games, maybe that score would go down a little bit. But if you played 1 game and you kicked 3 goals, how can I judge you harshly for that? I think that's you couldn't ask really much more of him, really. So he should be pretty happy with himself. Gary Rowan made a comeback last week. His first game for the year. Bit of an injury layoff to start the year. Came on as the sub, so a little hard to score him, even though when he did touch it, he looked really impressive. So you might be surprised by my score here, but I'm going to give him a 6. I actually thought the time that we saw him, he was very impressive. It just seems to be the only thing that I'm concerned about. And I'm being stupid here, but it seems like when Gary Rowan's in the team, bad things happen to Jeremy Cameron, and Jeremy just couldn't kick straight again. It's like he had the kryptonite going again. So, but no, Gary played really well as the sub. Hopefully we'll get some more game time this week, but I'm giving him a 6. I just thought he looked terrific whenever he got near the ball and was setting some play up. Mitch Nevitt played one game, or should I say 1 minute, didn't get a touch, didn't do anything, no stats to his name. Yeah, I don't know. What can you say? What can you say? As the sub, yeah, went and played VFL the day after. He flew back home, played VFL. How do you score a bloke like this? Not applicable. He's probably. I'm not going to score him. I don't think it's fair to score Mitch Nevitt. Really. If you want a number, all right, I'll give you a number. I'll give him a 2. That's harsh, but what would you give him? I don't know. What are you going to give him anyway? Let me know what you think. Grade some players. Let me know who you reckon probably the 4 or 5 best, and maybe let me know the 4 or 5 not worst, but maybe the players you'd have down the bottom there. Don't base it on how many games they've played necessarily, but unless it's based on form, clearly players get injured. Maybe you've got some players ranked higher than I have. Maybe I've overrated certain players, but it is a long season, so these ratings will change. I might come back to this about 2/3 of the way into the year, and I might sort of see where some of these ratings have changed a little bit. But yes, very keen to hear your thoughts. I did neglect, or maybe I did shout out the sponsor, but don't forget about Valhalla Brewing. There you go, down at North Geelong and in the city, in the tap room there. So make sure you get yourself a nice beverage before the game or after the game, whatever you want. Thanks for watching. Go Cats. I'll see you on the next one. Take care, everyone.